Welcome back to the Dota Radio Morning Show, presented by Dota Radio, the internet radio dedicated to Dota 2. Make sure you visit us at www.dotaradio.com to learn more about our audio-only style of commentary. Remember, you can tweet at us live during the show at ZyoriTV or at any of our hosts at HippieCasting or at Monolith Dota, and we may field your questions live on air as they pertain to our show. Welcome back to the Dota Radio Show. This is our simulcast. You can catch the audio-only version at dotaradio.com, the live stream Twitch version, and then there is the podcast audio archive that will be uploaded as soon as this episode is completed. We are back with our usual suspects here. I'm Zyori, your show host today. We've got Hippie on the analysis desk, and today we do have Monolith back with us, our master of communications. Last episode he had some power issues, but alas, I think he's with us here today. How you guys doing?
Good. Good to be back. Good to have my power back.
I can imagine.
We're doing great. Happy to have Monolith back around. Glad that he didn't vanish the second we gave him an introduction this time.
Yeah, the timing was impeccable. Apparently it was some sort of a car accident nearby. And you were out of power for what, at least like 2 days? It was a few days before I saw you back on Skype.
It's like a day and a half.
Yeah. It's still rough, man. A day and a half without internet, and I'm hurting a little bit, so that's unfortunate. Anyway, glad you're back with us, buddy. Remember, guys, you can always email into the show, Dota Radio, visit the portal now, dotaradio.com/morning show. The portal is now live, and you can go there to find basically everything that your heart desires here for Dota Radio here. I'll go ahead and show it. So we do now have the subscribe with iTunes link. You can check out the actual podcast feed, and check this out. We've got show hide toggles of the most recent episodes here on your portal page. You guys can check that out at your heart's content, and that should be everything you need Dota Radio Morning Show related. Remember, you can also email into us as well, morningshow@dotaradio.com. So let's go ahead and hop right into it today. We've got a lot of good stuff to talk about for our first episode on this Monday, October 28th, 2013. Now, important to note, before we get started, administrative stuff, the show format is now going to be 3 days a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. That is every other weekday, 3 episodes per week. After doing the first 3 days in a row last week, we decided that was a little intense, and we were probably going to run out of good talking points rather quickly if we try to do that every single day. So we're going to go for quality over quantity, and that kind of 2-day gap or 1-day gap in between is going to help make sure we have high quality talking points for every episode. I think it's going to work out better for the format of the show. So just keep that in mind in the back of your head. We may be a little bit more active about making Reddit threads about our episodes so that you guys know exactly what we're doing and when. We did have a Reddit up about this episode yesterday. I was hoping it would make it to the main page for the premiere of this episode. Unfortunately, though, it wasn't quite as popular as I'd hoped. Later today, we are going to have the Natalic Pro League CEO / Speed Gaming Manager, Marco Fernandez, joining us. He's going to talk about an array of things. He's going to address some of the dramas that were on Reddit over this past weekend about what's been happening over at the Natalic Pro League. He's going to talk to us about speed gaming a little bit and just the macroscopic environment of being a team manager / event organizer in our current Dota 2 esports landscape. But first thing on the docket, gentlemen, the Nexon Invitational Super Match did premiere this morning. It is October 28th. We talked about it last week, and they started off with Liquid, Fnatic, and one of the Korean teams. I believe their name is Underrated. UR. Did either of you get a chance to catch that action this morning?
I did not. I was sleeping in preparation for this.
All right, awesome, man. That's okay. It's a good excuse. I was watching part of it while I was prepping this morning, and it was pretty interesting. And I want to show, first off, our little flashcard here. This is a screenshot that I took of Fnatic doing an interview afterwards that sort of speaks to some of the production quality. The production was top-notch. And one of the things that was interesting is that they actually used the YouTube Live platform, not Twitch, not Hitbox, not Dailymotion, but YouTube Live. And it seemed to work really well. The quality was beautiful, and the production overall of just the studio and everything else was beautiful. And I loved this picture in particular of all the Fnatic guys sitting on stools. I love that they put Hani out in the front next to Fly, and they've got the giant, like, real-life Dota stone. It's like the heart of the mountain of Dota. I don't even know what to call that thing. I don't know. I really enjoyed watching some of it this morning. From first impressions, the Koreans did not fare so well. The Korean team lost to Liquid and also lost to Fnatic. So both of the foreigner teams won. And actually, Fnatic in Game 3, they ran a Riki Wisp duo mid, and it worked out pretty well for them. They did quite the job with that Riki pick. I thought it was a good pick in that game. The opposing side had, I think, 4 Ints and Elder Titan. And man, Riki, once he got a little bit of momentum, he was out of control. Both games were actually reasonably quick. The Korean style so far, at first glance from the two matches I got to see this morning, is pretty interesting. It seems very very passive. They seem to pick rosters built around farming, where they, especially in that first match they played against Liquid, it was sort of just sit back, let's get a whole bunch of farming carries, and that kind of backfired. Second game, they went kind of the opposite, and they picked this kind of, I wouldn't say hyper-aggressive, but very int-heavy, early-game style team, and it just didn't work out. They had the momentum for the first 15 minutes or so, and then it kind of crumbled once Fnatic got their bearing, and CM kind of fell off a little bit. But it was interesting, and it was sort of a breath of fresh air almost to see the YouTube Live platform, because we've been talking about live streaming platforms, and really nobody, not too many people at least, are using it. So it's interesting that the Koreans are utilizing that functionality. And what's also cool about the YouTube stream is that it has that built-in DVR feature, so that if you miss a play or something, you can pause it and rewind and then go back to real time, kind of like for those of you that like League of Legends, on their replay system has that, where you can pause and go back in time and then fast forward again. And that's a pretty cool feature. I have to admit, that is one thing the YouTube platform has going for it that the others don't, is that DVR function really comes in handy.
I mean, that's obviously something we get the replays on Twitch when they're done. That would be pretty cool. I haven't really used YouTube Live. I might have to try it out now that you've mentioned that. But there's a lot of times where I'm like, man, I'd love to rewind like 30 seconds just so I could watch that team fight again in slow motion, and you just can't quite do it. And some studios have been able to do some good instant replay stuff with some picture-in-picture to make sure they're not missing anything. But it's still a difficult proposition when you're kind of working with something as quick and intense as Dota to try and get that sort of thing up within such a reasonable amount of time and without missing anything that could be happening in the very near future.
Yeah. No, definitely right. It's good for spectators and also good for casters. So it's kind of a cool bit of functionality. And I have to say, I love the Korean broadcasters. They're so full of energy. It's unreal. I wish there was some way that we could have like English-speaking broadcasters do the Korean style, where they're all kind of screaming, they talk over one another, but when you're watching it, you can't really help but get excited. I think we've all seen that video that someone did the English voiceovers, I think from TI3, some of the Korean highlights, and it just the energy, the casting, it's such a different style from what we do here with English commentary. I did notice, though, only 1.7K viewers on the Korean stream. I have to imagine they have other distribution points in Korea than just the YouTube Live, because 1.7K is not a lot. I mean, there's like 4,000 people watching Eternal Envy right now as we speak, just play around in matchmaking, not talking to anyone. I was kind of startled at how low the viewer count was, but I don't know. I imagine they have other platforms of distribution that are not international and isolated to South Korea. So anyway, it was interesting. And also, with the YouTube Live now, they have a working chat. That is something that is new from last time I used YouTube Live. If you're logged into YouTube, there is a chat room just like Twitch, where your name, it said Dota Radio, pops up when you type. All integrated. You don't have to log in anything separate, which is really awesome. I mean, this was my first time using YouTube Live and thinking, holy shit, this is real. Where do I sign up? That was a cool sort of aha moment for me, because previously I felt that service hasn't really been quite ready, and today I got sort of a different taste. So anyway, it's an interesting format. We talked about how cool the idea of the international super match is, with setting up the show matches, flying teams out to Korea, and based on the faces of the foreigner teams, both Liquid and Fnatic, I think the foreigner teams were having a good time. So there's at least that to be said. Moving right forward, Yafets has come out of retirement. Hippie, you might want to comment on this one a little bit. Widely regarded as the best Shadow Fiend player world. He's coming back, and he's ready to rock and roll with the Tong Fu third-team roster. What do you think, pal?
I think, first of all, for anyone who hasn't heard of or seen Yafets play, you need to immediately, as soon as this is over, go to YouTube, search for Yafets, Yapghets, and watch some of those videos. Watch his show match versus Yamate, who is, I believe, considered one of the other best Shadow Fiends in the world. They did a 1v1 mid. And it's not just, oh man, he has really precise last hitting. He really knows how to lane. He really knows how to build that hero. It's his incredible precision with Shadow Rays, his really good, tactical positioning to get the Shadow Raises off, catching heroes in fog. He does so many things with that hero that even amazing players look at it and just like, damn, that was an amazing play right there. I mean, Dendy is on the record as saying, one of the reasons he really, was driven to get better is because he saw Yafets play Shadow Fiend and said, I want to be that good.
Wow. Coming from someone like Dendi, that says a lot right there.
He's insanely good, and it's one of those things where if you've been following Dota for a while, if you've been following Dota for a while, you know who Yafets is, you know how incredible he is, but if you missed the Dota 1 scene, if you didn't kind of get into that back in the day, maybe you missed that, and you really do owe it to yourself to go check out some of his play, and I'm hoping that he's just as good in Dota 2 as he was in Dota 1, because it will be superb.
You know,
so am I.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Charlie.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm really hoping that he's just as good as well, but realistically, I don't think that'll be the case. The game has changed so much since when he dominated. Everyone is so much better now. I mean, those flashy plays are so much harder to duplicate and replicate and get those off consistently. I mean, his videos, they play like a highlight reel, but man, I highly doubt he's going to have that same level of dominance. I mean, he's still probably really good, but I mean, that kind of style is probably, I mean, I don't really see that happening again.
My question is, what has he been doing in the interim here? Has he been playing Dota 1 this whole time? Has he been playing a different game? Has he been focusing on real life? What has he been doing since Dota 2 came out?
If I recall correctly, he's been streaming Dota 1 over the past few months, and he still looks pretty good.
All right.
But I don't think he's been moving as hard into Dota 2. And the engine difference might hit him a little bit. It definitely hits people when they make the transition.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even just watching videos, that video that you linked me yesterday, Hippie, of his skills, watching it on Dota 1, I'm having trouble. I'm like, is that a creep or is that a hero? Like, holy shit, I forgot how crappy these graphics were. I mean, I don't know how that couldn't affect a player of that level.
Oh, it definitely does. It's definitely going to affect him, and it's going to take time for him to get used to everything. And there are like definitely mechanical differences, like just the way that spells interact with each other that are going to be a lot different. And he's gonna, it'll be some time.
Mm-hmm. So, and with this announcement, we sort of mentioned the Tong Fu roster changes now. They're going to be creating a third team. And it's going to be SYDM, Long DD, Kaboo, Yafets, and X Bingo. And I read sort of an excerpt in that article. Kaboo is a name that I kind of recognize, but I can't quite place. Is he also coming out of retirement?
No. Kaboo, I don't know.
We don't know.
I think Kaboo played for another team. I don't think he was out of retirement, but I think he came over from another team.
Okay, because he was the other name kind of highlighted in that third team, like, oh, watch out, it's sort of an all-star. I do recognize Long DD. I know I've seen him a couple times. So it is going to be interesting, though, Tong Fu now with their third team. Pretty exciting. I know some folks in that Reddit that are asking, why bother have three teams? And someone, I think, correctly pointed out, for WPC Ace, the huge tournament over there that BTS has been covering for English commentary, they just get more exposure in that tournament. You know, they get more brand recognition, all that kind of stuff. And they've got three pretty solid teams as well, which is sort of interesting. It'd be interesting to see a Tong Fu versus Tong Fu big matchup, you know, like a semifinals or something like that. Could be interesting. We do have more roster changes here that we need to talk about, though. We do have Rock's Kiss switching up. They're now going to be sort of a combination of some of the teams we saw in Starladder Season 7 and two of the big members from Virtus Pro. They are now going to be Biz, Y'all, Sadoy, Go Black, and Resolution. And I remember that Virtus Pro roster that we were casting in Starladder Season 7, Hippie, we had both commented quite a bit on how it seemed like an all-star roster, but it could have been a case of kind of too many chefs in the kitchen because their results weren't really that great. Do you think this Rock's Kiss roster is another one of those, yeah, these players are great, but do they have that same harmony to really be a great team? Any thoughts about that new roster?
Well, I think we're just going to have to... Oh, go ahead, Mom.
No, go ahead.
I think we're going to have to see them in action before we determine that. Whenever you get a bunch of really good players on one team, you always have to see if they have the synergy before you can make any sort of call as to how good the team is going to be overall.
Well, I actually saw them in action yesterday. We scrimmed against them, just one game. And they were good. I mean, it's really hard to judge just off that one game because I feel like picks influenced a lot in that game.
Right.
I mean, they picked some some weird ass shit. Um, and but I think they made it work. But again, it's hard to judge because of the picks. We won the early game, and but I mean, it was like this 5-man push lineup, and it just at some point they hit their timing window and just pushed down towers.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, they got their. I mean, they had enough coordination to pull that off. So we'll see what happens with them. But I mean, it was a goal block draft.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. Those sort of isolated matches are hard to. You just can sort of have to take them at face value. It's hard to read too much into just a kind of best of one scrim with an all-in-ish type strategy like that, where you have that timing window, you either make it happen or you don't, and that's the game. But it will be interesting nonetheless to see how they fare. A lot of big names over on that team. And there is one other big roster change that we want to talk about, and Monolith, this is going to be your area of expertise. BDiz retires, and Dignitas has now replaced him with Demon. Shed some light on that for us, buddy.
Oh, well, Bobby, he wanted to pursue other things, and he said that, you know, his passion for Dota was pretty much waning, and he said, I mean, he had said that at the end of 2013, he wanted to retire, and he didn't want to drag down the team by making them play with somebody that, you know, wasn't going to be long term. So I mean, he graciously stepped down and he said, "But you know, as long as you need me, I'm here." So we reached out to Demon, who had been talking to 1437 for a while, and I know there have been like a lot of issues with, you know, his dedication, his work ethic. So I had a long conversation with him, and I talked to him about it. And I feel like when you're a player like that and you get, you know, kicked down a few rungs, you get kicked off your team, your work ethic becomes a topic of discussion, and it's highlighted like that. You know, it's a catalyst for change,
Mm-hmm.
and I think he's starting to do that. And you know, I believe that he can turn that around. And and we're all willing to give him a second chance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting, I think, and it's sort of sad after we heard BDiz talking on the chat wheel. I saw a tweet from Greg saying, "Looks like the guest on the chat wheel is ruining careers here." That was really his last public appearance, and it's like, all right, BDiz is retired. See you later. Sort of funny how that works out.
In careers.
Huh?
I don't know if his career is. I don't know if his career is totally ruined.
Oh, okay. Well, I wouldn't say ruined. Just retired has a certain free agent versus retired is why I choose that kind of thing. Is he going into more free agent mode than actually retiring? Would you say?
I'm not at liberty to say anything, but all I'm going to say is that his career is definitely not ruined.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Fair enough, my friend. I know NDAs and all that stuff are always something that have to be dealt with. So it'll be interesting to see the new roster nonetheless. Hopefully it works out for you guys. Wish you all the best. So today, guys, we're about 20 minutes into our hour-long episode today. The big topic of discussion today is going to be the NIGHTSTALKER Pro Series. Again, our guest is the manager of Speed Gaming and the CEO of NIGHTSTALKER Pro League, and he will be coming up pretty quickly here. We're going to move into our talking points for our last segment in the initial portion of our we forgot about our standout heroes. Let's do that first. So here we are in our flashcard. So I went ahead and collected a little bit of data for us here today, guys. On Mondays, this is something we want to get in the habit of doing, our standout stats of the week. And I broke it down into best hero, worst hero, and our interesting hero. Best heroes in terms of win rate and actual matches won. Bounty Hunter is off to an incredible start here in .79. He is 18-4 with an 81% win rate in 6.79 since that patch premiered. Crystal Maiden, she has the most wins, but a substantially lower win rate, 37 and 32, with about a 53-54% win rate. Our worst hero, and this one's kind of hard to figure out a little bit, because you can't just sort by win percentage. percentage because there are heroes, like 2 matches that have a terrible win percent or a 0 win percent. This one really stood out of the group as an outlier of a hero that was amazing and has now lost a lot of his steam, and that's little Ishkoffel there, the Darkseer. He is 9-18, 33% win rate. Ouch. Ouch, that hurts. Hippie, oh my soul, it burns. And our interesting hero is the Lich. We've all talked about how amazing Lich is, but his stats actually don't quite reflect it. He is 19-16, so he's solid, 54% win rate. He's doing just fine, but he's not out of control. He's not quite as insane as I thought he would be. And of course, this data was gathered from datdota.com. Hippie, I'll give the floor to you first. Based on those stats, any comments you want to make? Anything glaringly obvious that I didn't cover?
Well, I mean, talking about Bounty Hunter, Bounty Hunter, of course, didn't actually get changed himself. It's the changes to how the game is played around him that have changed just how insanely powerful he is right now. He's getting banned out a whole lot. You can see that he was only picked up in 22 matches since the patch dropped, which is pretty low for a Bounty Hunter. He used to be a reasonably viable second phase pick who only got banned out if you had already drafted someone like Chen or Enchantress who he could really harass. But because, first of all, jungling in general and trying to make use of the jungle is becoming a little bit more prevalent because of the fact that you can't as safely just want to run a 3-1-1 and have just pulls going on. You want to have someone who's actually able to sort of solidly jungle a little bit or have someone kind of roaming around the map. So the Bounty Hunter has more space opened up for himself in the lane, as well as, of course, the changes where he can now drain experience from whoever he's hanging out with in the jungle. So anytime a jungler is picked, he's even more powerful than he ever was before, and he was already really, really good against junglers. Now he can just go in there, not only take their last hits, but even when he doesn't get the last hit, he's draining half of their experience total. Yeah. And so you have not only a hero who has been very successful in the past, who's been a very good hero, but now the environment around him has changed to the point where everything he does is just incredibly useful and valuable. Yeah. So an 81% win rate on him honestly doesn't shock me at all. Yeah. I was expecting him to be very, very high up.
So what do you think about the Darkseer? Darkseer, pardon me, 9-18, 33% win rate.
That
again,
one.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that one. It confuses me a little bit. I've always considered Darkseer, very versatile. He did get, of course, another nerf to his vacuum cooldown, which is Ice Frog's favorite way to keep nerfing him down, which means he's still very potent in team fights, but he can't force the repositioning quite as often. He can't use it quite as liberally in lane. Overall, a little less utility because of the longer cooldown. I think probably part of it is going to be the fact that he's no longer, because the offlane is different, he's no longer quite as kind of standout dominating there. You have a lot more roaming supports, so maybe they're trying to put a lot more pressure on him, and he's not able to just kind of sit there and farm as much because so much more is going on around the map that he kind of needs to be active a little bit sooner. And while Darkseer can do a lot of work with Ion Shell, his big impact in the early game usually comes from a well-timed mech or getting some early arcane boots so he can keep his team in fighting shape, and like having a really, really fast mech can swing entire fights. And this is speculation on my part. Honestly, I'm still shocked Darkseer's win rate is that low. He's an amazing hero, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of the offlane being changed now to sort of not favor the solo offlane heroes as much, and also just the nature of the game is such that these big wombo combo teams that we were seeing pre-patch have been a little bit less popular, where Darkseer really thrives, the vacuum into the earth splitter, into the Naga ulti, into Jakiro. I don't think we've seen quite as much of that since the patch hit with more of the kind of 2-1-2 style of play.
Yeah, I think you've been seeing.
Yeah, go ahead.
You've been seeing a lot more skirmishes. Teams are much more willing to fight and engage in like these little breakout fights, or just much more fighting around the map, a little less split pushing, which is again why Bounty Hunter has probably seen a big resurgence. And the other thing, if I'm going to put on my clairvoyance hat, but I think the changes to the offlane are really what did it. Because one of Darkseer's advantages pre-patch was that he was such a good offlaner, just relatively so much better than all the other offlaners. But now all the other offlaners, because of the change to the patch change, they've caught up in prominence. And I think the the creep equilibrium change didn't help Darkseer that much, because when you go Darkseer off lane, I mean, no matter where the creep equilibrium really is, you just double ion shell the wave anyways, and you'll get experience that way. I mean, the wave is going to push up for you anyways. You double ion shell the wave. If you're against a weak solo hero, or a not so strong dual lane, you just double ion shell the wave, and then you cut the wave past the tower, and then you just start tanking their waves, and then they're forced to last hit on their tower, and then that's how Darkseer gets so fast so quickly. And then you pull to the neutrals, you pull to the medium camp, which is now changed to the small camp, so you get even less gold if you decide to do that now. So
right.
He's become a lot less relatively stronger. And now that the creep equilibrium meets more or less in the middle, double ion shelling the wave makes it's a lot harder to skip the tower now.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my clairvoyance rant.
Yeah. No, and I think you're pretty spot on with that. Sort of all those things. Again, another one of these heroes that his changes weren't that significant, but just the general state of the game is what changes his power. And I mean, that's a great introduction for what we're going to talk about with NIGHTSTALKER. So, you know, let's go ahead. Let's call an audible here. All right, we're going to do the Hippie segment now, and then we're going to move into talking points at the beginning of part 2. So, Hippie, talk to us a little bit about NIGHTSTALKER, since he's another one that we can admire sort of through statistics here a little bit. Go ahead and take it away, buddy.
All right, so NIGHTSTALKER is somebody who only got one change in the recent patch, and that was that his ultimate reduces, whenever it's running, it reduces everyone's vision, all the heroes, all the creeps, all the towers, all the wards on the opposite team by 25%. And so if you look at that in a vacuum, it's like, well, that's really cool, and it's going to let you do some cool ganking, but, I mean, how is that really such a big change? How is he getting to you know, first pick, sometimes first ban status? Why are teams trying to experiment so much more with NIGHTSTALKER? And you have to look at the other changes from around the rest of the patch. And the biggest one for that is the day-nighttime shift from the 6-minute cycle to the 4-minute cycle, which comes down to, so you now have shorter periods of time in which NIGHTSTALKER is useless, which means he can be a lot more aggressive a lot of the time. You get your first night a little bit quicker, which means either you can go ganking sooner, or you can put a lot of pressure on your lane at the 4-minute mark, which is before people have maybe bottle and boots at 4-minute. And if you've been farming well, you can probably get that too, especially if you're against a weak solo laner, or if you're in a tri-lane of some sort, you can have boots and then plus something small. So you can actually have like that little bit of farm advantage. You can get some early kills, and you can put a lot of pressure on the early game. And one other thing is that there used to be quite a few more heroes than there are now who have decent night vision. Previously, I mean, the heroes that got their night vision updated, the list is Drow Ranger, Mirana, Puck, Leshrac, Enchantress, Ancient Apparition, Meepo, Treant, Protector. And those guys had anywhere from, Leshrac only had 900 compared to the standard 800, but then you have heroes like Drow Ranger who had 1700 night vision, and she's now down to 800 like everybody else. So that's a huge, huge nerf, and when you take vision off of these, you know, these powerful heroes, like Puck was a regularly picked hero. Mirana is a regularly picked hero. She had extra vision. Enchantress had 1800 night vision, very powerful. Ancient Apparition, Meepo, Tree, not quite as common. Drow, not quite as common, but still the advantage they had of being harder to gank at nighttime is, you know, pretty significant. And then what with NIGHTSTALKER, Luna, and Slark now being the only people with 1800 night vision, there are still some with different. I think Alchemist still has 1400. But now, so say you have 1800 vision against 800 vision, cut that by 25% with Darkness now 600 vision. And so you not only have triple their vision radius, but you have spells that are landing on them from outside of anywhere they can possibly see.
Right.
And so the ganking potential is through the roof against these heroes that used to be reasonably stable at nighttime and reasonably hard to bring down.
Right. And to bring up a Heroes of Newerth piece, that kind of reminds me of Dark Lady's ultimate a little bit. Not quite as insane, but a similar idea of blocking that vision, preventing the team from knowing what's coming. And like you said, there are spells that now outrange that, and that makes it very difficult to react, makes it much easier to land skill shots. I want to comment on the actual statistics here. NIGHTSTALKER, another one who hasn't won quite as many games as we would have thought. Since 6.79, he's been in 35 matches, and he's gone 14 and 21. which means he's got about a 40% win rate. So NIGHTSTALKER actually doesn't have a positive win percentage, even though he's now pretty powerful, a very prominent pick. What would you attribute to that? Would you say it's probably a matter that he's still a snowball hero, and those snowball lineups are kind of a gamble, and they don't always pay off? I don't know how to interpret that statistic exactly.
I think my biggest thing is that I keep seeing teams run him in the 1 position, and I absolutely hate it. He's one of those heroes who I think he can be very powerful if you get him a good start, but relying on him as your hard carry is a mistake in my mind. He doesn't have the same kind of carry power. You need to have a very, very aggressive lineup and be sort of very all in to a kind of 20 to 30 minute timing to run a 1 position NIGHTSTALKER. And when people are first picking him, and then obviously there are mids that are coming out that are going to counter him. Previously, we used to mostly see NIGHTSTALKER picked by Alliance before this patch, and they would pick him last when S4 said, okay, I can win mid and snowball with NIGHTSTALKER. And that's, it's an S4 style of draft. If he has his last pick open for mid, he picks a snowball hero that's going to win mid. And then from there, he just kind of takes off and takes over games. We've seen it happen time and time and time again whenever he plays. And so I think the fact that teams are kind of drafting him really early, they want to get the power of that darkness, which is really strong. But they're like, well, we can't run him mid, so where do we run him? He needs farm, he needs levels. We can't put him in the off lane. He'll get zoned out. He's too weak. He's not a strong solo against a multiple hero combo. Well, I guess we have to run him in the 1 position, and he just isn't good.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. Monolith, you have anything to add to NIGHTSTALKER analysis?
I mean, I think it's just he works in certain lineups, and then he works very poorly in other lineups. As far as his win rate right now, I think teams are still, like win rates all over the place. I think teams are still figuring out what works and what doesn't in this patch.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
So I don't know. It's hard to say just based off win rates right now.
No, that's definitely a good point. We got to take all these stats with a grain of salt. It's just always interesting to have a little bit of data to back up the theory crafting. So NIGHTSTALKER, though, he's been a popular pick in those competitive games, a popular ban as well. It seems that if he's not first picked or first banned, he's usually in that second banning group. That's where I feel like I've seen him the most, though that's based on purely anecdotal evidence, indeed. That does wrap up the first portion here of the Dota Radio Morning Show, episode number 4 here on October 28th, 2013. It's bright and early here on the East Coast, 10:35. We're going to be coming back with our second segment. We will start with our talking points and transition into our interview with Marco Fernandez, the Netalic's CEO and manager of Speed Gaming. So don't go anywhere, guys. We'll be right back in 2 minutes here with plenty of awesome content coming your way.